The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Flu shot, the subject of a Justice Department lawsuit alleging religious discrimination. There is an employer who has a requirement that employees get flu shots, and a woman was allegedly experiencing severe emotional distress as well as anxiety and the fear of going to hell because her religion dictates that she not get a flu shot, and that was the requirement of her employer. This is from a county-owned nursing home in Wisconsin, which says that when Lasata Care Center required that Barnell Williams, a former nursing assistant, get a flu shot, they were violating her religious beliefs, and that the requirement didn't allow her free religious practice and discriminated against her based on, I don't even know exactly where in the Bible this is or which interpretation of the Bible it's from, but the idea that the Bible prohibits flu shots.
Thou shalt not have vaccinations.
Yeah, I don't remember that. And of course, I'm no legal scholar, and I only went to like 3 months of Hebrew school and then bailed. I don't know if it's an Old Testament thing or a New Testament thing. And the center did allow people to opt out on the basis of religion, but only if they could get a written statement from a clergy leader saying this would violate this congregant's religious beliefs. And Williams wasn't able to get that letter because she didn't actually belong to a church with a clergy member, and therefore she was denied an exemption. What do you think? This is one of those things that is very borderline, because requiring vaccination for children to be in a public school is not requiring vaccination. And some European countries require vaccination, but we've had in the US places where schools or states say, if you want your kid in public school, you got to get the vaccination. You don't have to go to public school. You can homeschool. You can send to a private school if they'll have you, whatever.
Although you are putting them at a disadvantage, and you're
Certainly
paying taxes, so you'd expect that you'd be able to put your kids into public schools.
No
so
doubt
there
about
are
it.
concerns there.
Not a decision I would make, but certainly one that is available and that there are sort of some concerns with. This is a different situation. This is an employer saying this is a requirement. However, it is a county-owned place. So it is not a restriction of private industry. It is saying government policy is that to work in this place, because it's run by the county, you've got to have a flu shot. And if people decide that that's not something they want to do, then they can quit their jobs. But it starts to become a little bit oppressive. I don't know. I mean, I listen, if you're working at a nursing home where there are not only elderly patients who you want to protect from the flu, right, as an individual who's working there, therefore you would want to be vaccinated for those reasons, you're going to have kids of all ages coming to visit their grandparents and parents who might be in the nursing home. There's every reason to get a flu shot, but I'm unsure about the requirement to get the flu shot here. And it's not that I even believe in the religious exemptions. I'm just unsure about a flu shot requirement.
Like, I'm all for having protected statuses, too, even when those things are, when it comes down to choice, like, say, religion, or veteran status is usually a choice, pregnancy status is usually also a choice.
Okay.
So if they were saying, oh, you can't work here because you're a Christian, you can't work here because you're a Muslim, I would think that that's completely wrong.
Absolutely.
But when you're talking about the specifics within that religion, like this person saying that, oh, I can't have a vaccine because I'm a Christian, I think that's where it gets dicey. And maybe there is a case to be made that it's okay to keep her out of that position.
I mean, I'm having a tough time with this one, and it has nothing to do with religious exemption sensitivity, and it has nothing to do with my position on vaccines, which I am for, and I've been getting a flu shot for like 15 years or something like that. I'm just wondering whether this is crossing a line that's different than the requirement for kids in public school to have not the flu shot, but other vaccines. I'm just really not sure, and we'll see how this ultimately turns out.
Because we like to take things on a case-by-case basis. I think that's usually how people operate.
Sure.
But when you're talking about like the legal system, precedent matters. So if you say it's okay in one case and not okay in the other, the inconsistency is going to raise a lot of problems.
Now, let me propose something else to you. Using the presence of a particular religion as the reason for an exemption in the eyes of the law, shouldn't be different than using the absence of religion as an exemption. And I'm wondering if someone said, my non-religious beliefs dictate that I can't be vaccinated, that should be equally protected under the law. And therefore, it makes the entire concept of a religious exemption pretty questionable, because the absence of religion in the law has to be treated the same as religion, right? In other words, free exercise of religion or not to exercise or be part of any religion.
You have freedom of religion, then you have freedom from religion.
And I've not heard anyone say, my non-religious beliefs dictate that I not be subjected to this regulation or that regulation. If you accept it, if someone says it's because of their specific religion, you kind of have to accept it based on lack of religion as well. And I'm kind of getting off the rails here, but that's something else that I think needs to be considered as well every time we think about so-called religious exemptions. China has a satellite called Tiangong-1. And Tiangong-1, a space station, also a satellite in terms of how it functions, but a space station. It is expected to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and crash into the Earth in just a few weeks. Where is it expected to crash into the Earth? Somewhere in the northern United States is what it appears to be. Well, see, when I think of northern, I think of like the northern plains.
I think of northwestern, I guess, but like we are technically northern too.
We are in the north, but I think more of like the Dakotas and Montana and places like that. But apparently it's going to re-enter somewhere in the northern U.S. states, parts of South America, northern China, the Middle East, central Italy, northern Spain, New Zealand, the south of Africa, or Tasmania in Australia.
Yeah, where
That's a lot of different places. That's a lot of different places. But the northern U.S. states are listed there. Do we have to do anything to protect ourselves from this? Apparently not. Apparently, the entire thing is going to break down into such a small amount, such small pieces that there should be nothing beyond just powder that would actually come down. And we really don't need to worry about this, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was something that was big enough and powerful enough to be lethal,
the odds,
I wouldn't be very concerned, because at least the odds of it hitting me are infinitesimal.
Yes.
The odds of it hitting someone, though, still very, very small, because, of course, most of the Earth is water.
Yeah.
And even of the land that we have, most of it isn't occupied.
That's right.
So I don't know if that would still be worth worrying about.
It could hit Trump, though.
It could hit Trump.
It could hit any individual person. Yeah, I recently remember something regarding population science where if we needed to, and why we would need to do this, I don't know, but if we needed to squeeze the entire Earth's population into Rhode Island, we could do it.
No way.
Yeah.
7 billion people in Rhode Island?
I think so.
Would people want to go to Rhode Island?
Well, that's the real question. Yeah. Shoulder to shoulder, I think. Now I'm second guessing. Was that the American population or the world population? I thought it was the world population could actually fit into Rhode Island.
It's interesting because it was Scientology week on the David Pakman Show.
Yeah.
And don't they believe that they had a planet that was occupied by like 100 billion people or something?
Yeah,
and they had to
like
spread
that.
out. So that must have been pretty densely populated.
You would think so. You would think so. And yet, Scientology still is bogus. So congratulations to them. No, I actually am. It's so funny because we did a bunch of Scientology stuff this week, and I'm reading, as I've mentioned, Carl Sagan's Demon Haunted World, which is sort of like a pseudoscience debunking book. And there's a lot of stuff about L. Ron Hubbard in there, which is pretty interesting. And I encourage people to check out that book, as well as Cosmos as well.
Yeah,
which
Cosmos
you're reading currently, I believe.
I finished it.
Oh, did you finish it? What did you think?
I was very happy with it.
You are.
I like how it was structured. So he didn't start with our like earliest understandings of the universe, like with how the ancient Greeks thought of it, and moved on to like the Renaissance era.
Yeah.
He mixed and matched a lot, which I like. I thought the narrative was very good.
I thought it was excellent. Excellent. And he's a very good writer. Really, really. A lot of science writing is often, not that great for the layperson, but this is very, very, very nice writing.
Yeah, that was kind of the point, to present science in an interesting way to the general public.
Totally.
So that everyone can enjoy it to some extent.
Great book. Cosmos Season 2 with Neil deGrasse Tyson coming soon. Okay, here's just a very brief story on issues of the homeless, which I think is something that in many cities is a growing concern for everybody from a public health perspective, from an economic perspective. We've talked about the problem of the homeless population in San Francisco, and Seattle is also having a problem. And there has been a very important ruling made in King County Superior Court, which includes Seattle, that the pickup truck that a homeless man owns is for all legal intents and purposes his home. And this is very important because if someone has a vehicle that is improperly parked and isn't getting moved with the frequency that it's supposed to get moved, that can be impounded based on the law, the civil law around cars in Seattle. But once you designate that as the individual's home, the truck can no longer be impounded. The judge also ordered the city to refund the fees that the individual was levied for the impounding and for the towing.
That's rare.
Saying that it's a violation of a constitutional protection against excessive fines, again, because this is his home. This is actually very interesting, and it's opening up, the concern from, I don't know how I would describe them, but you can imagine the concern from some people that we all are aware of is that this will lead to homeless people going out, buying $200 junkers, getting them towed to some parking spot, and basically saying, this is now my home, and this is where I live, and it's going to be a disaster, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it will hopefully provide very important precedent and protections for someone like this individual.
Yeah, because this guy's car could barely run.
Yeah.
So even moving it the slightest bit day to day would have been a challenge for him, and maybe one that he couldn't afford because you have to get that thing fixed eventually.
Yep.
So at least for the short term, that was his only option. And what else?
He had no other choice.
Yeah. I mean, the other option is to, I guess, find a homeless shelter or to sleep outside, and the city's not going to be favorable to either of those options.
Seattle in the winter alone is not a great place to be sleeping, regardless of whether you'd be allowed. Most cities with homeless problems have no vacancy in homeless shelters, so it's very easy to say, just go to a homeless shelter. They're typically full.
Yeah.
And this also has implications in terms of unreasonable search and seizure, because when the police entered in the way that they did, once this was retroactively designated this man's home, it became an unreasonable search and seizure with no warrant.
Right. So I think that's a little bit challenging because obviously if someone was living in a house, the police would have to get a warrant before entering it.
Yep.
Otherwise, any findings would have to be thrown out in court.
Yep.
But if you talk about the homeless population, maybe they don't possess much. Maybe they're just keeping whatever goods they have under a blanket and some makeshift shelter.
Yes.
So do you have to get a warrant before entering something like that? Something as simple as a blanket?
I think currently you do not. But you raise an interesting question, which is if someone is set up on a city street with a few boxes as a de facto home, does that become a home in the protected sense when it comes to police interactions? I think it's pretty clear right now that the answer is no. I don't think there is precedent that says that is a home and it's treated that way. However, the slippery slopists would say when you go and you add cars to that, even a car that doesn't run, even a car that is only technically a car in the most basic sense that's just a shell of a car as a home, you're not that far from saying the box is also a home.
Yeah, it's like everyone has to draw a line at some point.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with drawing it at any sort of vehicle, be it a van or just a simple car.
What about...
I guess because it's enclosed and
that was going to be my thing.
It's its own environment. You can turn the heat up. You can turn the AC up. I think that qualifies.
I was going to say, what about a bicycle, which is not enclosed, and therefore, although it might serve the same purpose, a bicycle can't be your home per se.
It's not going to shelter you, yeah.
But everything you have in a basket would sort of be plain to see, unless it's covered with a blanket or something. Would that be protected from warrantless search and seizure? I don't know the answer. My guess is right now it would not.
I'm just working off of common sense.
Yeah,
I think.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how these things would actually be decided.
Yeah, I think that they would be decided in most places in ways that are not very favorable to homeless people. No. That seems to be the trend. Okay, next week, normal week. Nothing really to announce. We've got a normal week next week, and that'll be exciting.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.